Imagine there's a Bible not like the one you know, a Bible that holds the key to some of the most astonishing revelations in Christian history, truths so profound that they were hidden from the world for centuries. This is not the familiar Bible with its 66 books found in most Christian traditions. No, this Bible contains 88 books, texts that were banned, suppressed, and deemed too dangerous by early Christian leaders. What if I told you that these banned books contain secrets about fallen angels, mysterious Nephilim, and apocalyptic prophecies describing the end of the world like never before? Today, we delve into the hidden books of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, a collection rich with mysteries preserved outside the Western canon. For most, the Bible means the traditional 66-book canon, 39 Old Testament and 27 New Testament books. Yet, the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible defies this norm with its astonishing 88 books, including 22 extra texts that are not mere appendices or commentaries, but fully fledged sacred works. These texts were once deeply revered by early Jewish and Christian communities, only to be later excluded as church leaders sought to streamline Christian doctrine. In many ways, these texts represent a broader, more diverse early tradition of faith, one that was ultimately marginalized by the decisions made at early church councils. To understand why these texts were banned, we must examine the historical context in which canon formation took place. In the early centuries of Christianity, regional communities widely used a variety of sacred writings. However, as the church grew, so did the need for a unified doctrine. Councils such as Nicaea, 325 AD, Hippo, 393 AD, and Carthage, 397 AD, played decisive roles in shaping the biblical canon. These councils were not merely theological gatherings. They were also forums where political, social, and cultural pressures influenced decisions on what constituted authentic scripture. Many of the banned texts were set aside because they were considered too mystical, speculative, or too closely connected with Jewish traditions at a time when Christianity was redefining itself for a Gentile audience. This complex interplay between theology and politics ultimately led to the exclusion of certain texts from the Western canon, even though they were cherished in other parts of the Christian world, notably in Ethiopia. These additional texts contain more than historical narrative. They weave prophecies, cosmic visions, and vivid stories that challenge conventional biblical narratives. Consider the Book of Enoch, one of the most famous of the banned texts. Enoch contains detailed descriptions of the Watchers, a group of angels dispatched by God to oversee humanity. Instead of fulfilling this purpose, these angels fell from grace by succumbing to earthly temptations. They entered into forbidden relationships with human women, leading to the birth of the Nephilim, a race of giants whose corruption and violence would eventually invoke divine judgment through a catastrophic flood. Moreover, Enoch's visionary sections, such as the Book of Parables, forecast the coming of a Son of Man who will rise to deliver judgment, a prophecy with striking parallels to later New Testament imagery. Yet Enoch is only one voice within a diverse chorus of mystical revelations. The Book of Jubilees offers an alternative retelling of biblical history from creation to the giving of the law. It insists that time is not arbitrary, but divinely ordained, introducing a solar calendar of 364 days, divided into fixed cycles called Jubilees. This text firmly asserts that the laws given to foundational figures like Adam, Noah, and Abraham were eternal, a stark contrast to later interpretations, which adjusted and even abandoned these measures. The narratives of the Maccabean texts, on the other hand, record heroic resistances against foreign oppressors, charting not just military victories, but also the unwavering spiritual commitment of communities under threat. These stories celebrate both the physical and divine interventions that saved ancient peoples from religious persecution. Another mystical work is the Ascension of Isaiah, which recounts the prophet Isaiah's visionary journey through the seven heavens. In his ascent, Isaiah encounters an array of angelic beings, from seraphim and cherubim to other celestial hosts, culminating in a dramatic vision of the Messiah's descent. This descent is not simply an earthly event, but a cosmic struggle symbolizing the eternal battle between the forces of light and darkness. These narratives, rich in allegory and prophecy, paint a picture of the universe as a battleground where the destinies of angels, demons, and humankind are irrevocably intertwined. Ethiopia's connection to the Bible runs deep, far beyond the confines of Western tradition. Long before European colonization, and even before Christianity spread through the Roman Empire, the ancient kingdom of Ethiopia had already cultivated a profound spiritual tradition deeply interwoven with biblical narratives. Ethiopia was among the first nations to adopt Christianity officially in the 4th century AD, long before many Western nations embraced the faith. The Bible, written in the ancient language of Ge'ez, was not just a book to Ethiopians. It was the cornerstone of their national identity, shaping every facet of their cultural and religious life. Ethiopian tradition stretches even further back in time to the legendary Queen of Sheba. While Western scriptures provide only a brief account of her visit to King Solomon in Jerusalem, Ethiopian lore greatly expands on the story. According to tradition, the Queen of Sheba, known locally as Mada, journeyed from her homeland, traditionally identified with regions of modern-day Ethiopia and Yemen, to meet Solomon. But the encounter did not end with a simple diplomatic exchange. Ethiopian texts assert that she bore Solomon a child, Menelik I, who would later become the first emperor of Ethiopia. Legend has it that Menelik, upon reaching adulthood, traveled to Jerusalem to meet his father, and returned to Ethiopia carrying the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred chest housing the 10 Commandments. For Ethiopians, what took place was not merely a historical event. It was a divine mandate. The Ark symbolized the nation's unique role as a guardian of God's law, establishing Ethiopia's spiritual destiny and its enduring link to Israel's sacred history. This deep connection with biblical history enabled Ethiopia to preserve a richer set of sacred texts. Unlike the Western Church, which gradually reduced the biblical canon to 66 books, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church maintained a broader collection, a living archive reflecting both mystical insights and historical traditions inherited from early Judaism and Christianity. Ethiopia's relative isolation from Western theological and colonial pressures allowed these texts to survive, unaltered and unmarred by the debates that reshaped the Western canon. This ancient work is divided into several sections. The opening Book of Watchers describes how 200 angels, the Watchers, were dispatched by God to oversee humanity. Defying their mandate, these angels succumbed to earthly temptation by taking human wives, leading to the birth of the Nephilim, giants whose corrupt ways spread violence across the earth. Enoch goes on to describe the resulting breakdown of divine order, culminating in the flood meant to purge this corruption. Yet beyond this, the Book of Parables of Enoch offers apocalyptic prophecies, including the foretold coming of a Son of Man, who will execute final judgment. Modern biblical scholars point to Jude 1:14-15 as evidence of Enoch's influence, noting its striking similarities to New Testament messianic predictions. While many in the Western Church saw these detailed visions as too speculative, Ethiopian tradition embraced them as an essential window into the cosmic battle between good and evil. The Book of Jubilees. Known also as Little Genesis, Jubilees retells the stories found in Genesis and Exodus, but with notable differences. It emphasizes that time is divinely structured, governed by an exact solar calendar of 364 days, and that events in biblical history occur within fixed cycles, or jubilees. The text insists that the laws given at Mount Sinai, and earlier to figures like Adam, Noah, and Abraham, were eternal, predating and superseding later modifications. For modern scholars, Jubilees provides invaluable insight into ancient Jewish thought and calendrical systems. It reveals how early Jewish communities viewed time and law as sacred and unchanging, concepts that were later challenged as Christianity began to distance itself from strict Mosaic observance. There are multiple Maccabean texts within the Ethiopian canon. These books recount the Jewish revolt against foreign oppression, most famously the revolt against King Antiochus IV Epiphanes, which led to the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem and the celebration of Hanukkah. They also include accounts of martyrdom, such as the tale of the 7 brothers and their mother, who were tortured and killed for refusing to violate their religious laws. These narratives not only celebrate military triumphs, but also emphasize steadfast faith in the face of brutal persecution. Contemporary scholars appreciate these texts for their vivid portrayal of resistance and for the way they capture the tension between maintaining ancient religious law and facing modern imperial power. This mystical, apocalyptic text recounts the prophet Isaiah's visionary journey through the heavens. As he ascends through the 7 levels of heaven, Isaiah encounters various angelic orders, from seraphim to cherubim, and witnesses the structures of the divine realm. His journey culminates in a dramatic vision of the Messiah's descent to earth, where the forces of darkness are challenged and ultimately overcome. Modern interpretations view this text as a unique testament to early Christian apocalyptic thought, one that bridges Old Testament prophecy with nascent New Testament themes of redemption and divine intervention. The story of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible cannot be separated from the dynamics of colonialism. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, European colonial powers, most notably Italy, sought to extend their influence over Africa, including Ethiopia. These powers aim not only to control territories, but also to impose Western cultural and religious norms. The Ethiopian Bible, with its unique 88-book canon and deep ties to ancient Jewish and early Christian traditions, became a potent symbol of spiritual autonomy and resistance. Colonial authorities viewed its preservation as a challenge to the uniformity of Western Christianity. By upholding a broader, more inclusive canon, Ethiopians were asserting their right to a distinct spiritual identity, one that could not be reformed or erased by foreign rulers. Historical records show that Ethiopia's resistance was not limited to military engagements. The role of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church in safeguarding its sacred texts was equally significant. It represented a stand against the homogenizing pressures of colonial rule. In regions where European powers tried to impose their interpretation of Christianity, the Ethiopian model, with its respect for a diversity of sacred writings, remained a beacon of indigenous resilience. This cultural defiance is a subject of great interest among modern historians and theologians alike, who see it as a testimony to the power of local traditions to withstand external domination. Even in today's modern world, Rife with global conflicts, environmental crises, and social upheaval, the themes found within these ancient texts remain strikingly relevant. The prophecies of the Book of Enoch, for instance, with its detailed narrative of fallen angels and the impending final judgment, resonate with contemporary concerns about divine justice and the cosmic struggle between good and evil. Similarly, the insistence on a precise solar calendar in Jubilees raises provocative questions about time, order, and whether modern society has lost alignment with a divinely ordained rhythm. Modern biblical scholars and theologians often reference texts like these when discussing spiritual warfare. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us that our battles are not merely against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, a concept deeply rooted in the mystical imagery found in these banned books. In today's cultural and theological debates, these ancient prophecies serve as a reminder that the struggle between light and darkness is not confined to the past, but continues to shape human experience. Moreover, the detailed accounts of celestial hierarchies and apocalyptic visions found in works such as the Ascension of Isaiah invite a re-examination of current events. In a time when many are questioning the nature of leadership, divine justice, and the future of our world, the prophetic visions of the early church offer a timeless perspective, one that challenges us to think beyond the surface of political and social issues and to consider a deeper cosmic framework for understanding our place in the universe. One overarching message emerges from the preservation of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible. Early Christianity was not a monolithic faith, but a vibrant tapestry of beliefs, interpretations, and spiritual explorations. The additional texts preserved by the Ethiopian Church reveal a multifaceted approach to divine truth. Rather than conforming to a single, rigid doctrine, early communities entertained diverse ideas about angels, prophetic judgments, and the eternal nature of divine law. Modern scholarship increasingly recognizes that these divergent voices were integral to the formation of a richer, more complex faith. While the Western Church eventually standardized its canon to maintain unity, the survival of these alternative texts in Ethiopia reminds us that there was once a broader spectrum of spiritual thought, a spectrum that allowed for mystery, nuance, and the ongoing dialogue between tradition and revelation. Reclaiming this multifaceted heritage invites modern believers to reevaluate whether exploring these ancient voices could enrich our current understanding of Scripture. In conclusion, the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible stands not as a relic of a bygone era, but as a living document that embodies the depth, diversity, and dynamism of early Christian thought. Its 88 books tell a story of divine revelation through cosmic battles, heroic resistance, and timeless prophecies, each page inviting us to examine the full breadth of spiritual truth. The texts preserved within it challenge us to look beyond a single narrative of salvation, urging us instead to consider the possibility that divine wisdom is as multifaceted as humanity itself. Today, as we confront rapid changes in our social, political, and spiritual landscapes, the ancient prophecies and teachings contained in these texts may offer new insights for modern times. They remind us that the pursuit of truth is an ever-evolving journey, one that demands we remain open to diverse interpretations and ever question the boundaries of what we think we know about the divine. Thank you for joining me on this in-depth exploration. If these revelations have sparked your curiosity and inspired you to look deeper into the mysteries of our ancient past, please like this video, subscribe for more insights, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.